Raven, the song "The Raven Who Refused to Sing" is based on a short story. Some of the songs are actually written as short stories and will appear in the special edition. So this story is about an old man who, when he was a child, had a sister who died when he was very young. And he's never been able to recover from the loss of his sister. He's never had another connection or relationship with another human being. Now he's kind of at the end of his life, very sad, very lonely old man. And a raven starts to visit his garden. And for him, the raven becomes like a symbol or a manifestation of his dead sister. And when he was very young, his sister, when he was frightened or afraid, his sister would sing to him to calm him down. So the raven, so for him, he feels that if he can get the raven to sing to him, in his ignorance he believes the raven can sing. And if he hears the raven sing, he believes that will be proof to him that this is his sister returned to him, to be with him at the end of his life. Now there's an end to that story which I don't want to give away, but that's the basic idea. They were all created. In fact, this particular song was based on an idea by Hayao Muller, the artist. Some of the other stories came just from, I don't know where they came from. I mean, nothing comes from nowhere, of course. Everything is influenced an idea or a book you read or a movie you saw, but sometimes you don't necessarily remember where
it's like music.
Yeah, exactly like music. I don't know where the ideas came from, but there are 3 short stories in the book. One is based on Luminol, one is based on the title track, and there's another one called The Birthday Party, which is actually a song that it's not on the final record. We recorded that track, but it didn't make the final record, but the story is still in the book. And they're all different. They're all classical ghost supernatural stories. We wanted to do the photo session not necessarily in a haunted house, but in somewhere where there was a sense of history, there was a sense of the past, and there was a kind of classical thing. Yeah, it was. It was, and also not only because of that, but also because I wrote the music
During the tour?
Not during the tour. I don't really write music when I'm on tour, but I wrote the music knowing the musicians that were going to play on it, which is a very different process to the one I used for the previous 2 solo records, where I was writing music and then after I'd written it I would think, okay, who shall I have play on this? This time I already knew the band, I knew they had a certain chemistry, I knew what they were capable of doing, and so I was writing specifically with their musical personalities in mind. So it made it a little bit, I wouldn't say easy, because it's never easy to write music for me, but it made it simpler in my mind, knowing that I was writing, say for example, Marco, drummer, or I was writing for Theo, or I was writing for Adam. So I knew the personalities, so it made it a smoother process. No, it's really hard. I find writing really hard. I find recording is a lot of fun. Writing is really hard and quite painful. The thing is that looking at a blank page, if you think of it as looking at a blank page and you have to create something from nothing, it's really hard. Yeah, but great ideas are hard to find, and great ideas come through trial and error. I think I'm like a lot of people. Is that what usually gets me started is stealing from something else. So what you usually, in this case, what got me started was the idea of the ghost story, reading ghost stories.
You have to get inspired by it.
You have to be inspired, yeah. You have to start by taking something that already exists, and kind of like, okay, I'm going to steal that idea, but I'm going to make it my own. I'm going to put my own person. And I think that that's no exception. But still, it's not easy. It's not easy. The writing is always the hardest thing for me. I know people think I'm doing it all the time. I'm not. I mean, this album was the first stuff I'd really written for about a year. The last thing I'd written before that was probably the Storm Corrosion stuff with Michael, and that was easier because we were together, writing together. So the last time before this that I'd written for myself on my own was for Grace for Drowning. That was probably 2 years before. So I don't write that often, and when I do, it's always a difficult birth. But once I get going, once you have 2 or 3 songs, it becomes a little bit easier. But that first song is always, I don't know where it comes from. Thank goodness it does. What you talk about is something that comes very naturally, because firstly the band is made up of musicians from very different styles. We have Adam Holtzman and Theo Travis, who are jazz musicians.
You can hear that.
Yeah, of course you can. We have Nick Beggs, who comes from more of a pop background. We have Marco and Guthrie, who are more rock musicians, and of course myself I'm a rock musician too. So firstly you have a mixture of musical personalities with different musical backgrounds. And secondly, it's not something I think about. I think when you like as many different kinds of music that I do. I mean, I like all kinds of music. Obviously I like progressive music, but I also love jazz. I love electronic music. I love drone music. I love noisy music. I love metal music. They're all inside me. So when I write music and when I make music, it all tends to come out in a very natural, intuitive way. It's not like I sit down and say, you know what, here's a big pie, we're going to have 20% jazz, 30%. It's not the way it works. It just comes out in the way that is my musical personality. And these guys have their own musical personalities too, so they bring something to the sound. And the result is what you hear, and it's not something that we thought about or intellectualized at all. I know the personalities of the musicians, I know my musical personality, so I have a pretty good idea how it's going to sound. Yeah. I'm not going to tell you
We're
what.
not really sure.
No, you're fake. I wanted someone. I wanted the record. Okay, I need to go back even further. For me, the golden era of rock music is the 70s. For a lot of people. But it's not just the music, it's not the inspiration. There's something about the sound of records from that period that I love. There's a sort of golden quality, a kind of organic quality about the way records sounded in the 70s that I've always loved, and I've always been trying to get back to that sound, kind of pre-digital, pre-computer approach to making records. And of course working on King Crimson catalogue, the Jethro Tull catalogue, brought me closer to understanding a little bit more about how they made those records. So for this album, I wanted to work with somebody that knew how to make records and actually was making records at that time. And in fact, in the case of Alan, made what many people think is the best sounding ever, Dark Side of the Moon. It's just a beautiful, whatever you think of the music, it's a beautiful sounding record. So he was top of my list, really. I mean, I had a list of about 3 people, all of whom were engineers in the 70s that I really loved the sound of their records. but Alan was top of the list, and luckily he knew who I was, and he was already kind of a fan, and he agreed to do it. So it's as simple as that, and he did a great job. There's only one song I did with the band, but there's 2 or 3 other songs I wrote which we didn't record. They'll all come out, yeah. I mean, I think we'll do something else later on in the year, maybe an EP or because the birthday party actually is a fantastic one. I really like it. It's a really good track, but it just didn't quite fit, and I wanted the album to be not too long. I went to a show with him playing with the Aristocrats, and because I went to see Marco. Marco was obviously playing drums in that band, and I went along to see Marco as a friend of Marco. And I kind of knew Guthrie a little bit, met him at the show, and I'd heard a little bit of him playing, but I didn't realise just how good he was until I saw him play at that show. And the thing is, I'm not the kind of person who's impressed by fast playing. I don't like technical players at all. But he did some things that night when I saw him play that were so beautiful, and I just immediately knew that if this guy was playing my music, he could do things with my music that would take it to a higher place, a higher level. And so from that point on, I kind of felt like that he was the guy I wanted in the band. And in the meantime, I was still trying. I tried Aziz and Nico, and they're all great players. But I guess that I was still feeling like I was looking for something extra magical, and Guthrie. It seemed to me that Guthrie was the guy, and he came along and he did the album and he played. Well, you've heard. He played amazing stuff. Bass, I played bass on a home drinker so that Nick could play the Chapman stick. Yeah. So the thing is, because we recorded everything live in the studio, so if Nick played the Chapman stick, then it gave me the chance to do my bass thing. Yeah, I like playing bass; it's fun. Lass is doing a lot of new films for the show. So the show will be a mixture of animation and film work. But I was very set in my mind that the artwork for this album should be illustration, not photography, because I wanted the book version particularly to feel like the kind of thing that you would find in a second-hand bookshop, like right in the furthest, dustiest corner. You pull out a book that was like 100 years old of like these classical ghost stories. So I wanted the artwork to have a kind of almost fairy tale, like illustration quality, rather than photography. So it's a change, but Lass is still very much involved in the live show. He does so many different things. He's amazing. I mean, he can switch styles. And, very talented. Wow, I haven't thought about it.
Really?
No, well, the thing is, we just made one. We just made one Blu-ray. So I think if it's something we do it later in the year. I always like to concentrate on one thing at a time. So right now, just to get the tour looking and sounding as good as it can, we'll do the first tour, the first tour of Europe, the first tour of America, South America. If that all goes really well, then maybe we'll film a show on the second part of the tour, which will be later in the year. I mean, writing, I don't write all the time. I write maybe once every 2 years. I'll go into writing.
Writing mood.
Yeah, so I won't be writing this year. I've got lots of other stuff always. I mean, I've got lots of work to do. Obviously, right now preparing for this tour, rehearsing the band, going on tour with the band. I also have a lot more remixing projects to do, archive music and classic albums.
You're not going to tell us which one?
I can't. Well, I can't because it's up to the record companies and the artists to announce.
Of course.
But there's lots of stuff like that coming along. And actually, the more I do, the more comes along.
Of course.
Because people see the success of the King Crimson and the Jet Fatal, and they want. So other bands want to do the same thing. So and I seem to be one of the only people doing that. So it's great for me. So actually, I think for this year, it's going to be the solo touring, promoting the solo record, and more remixing work. I have no plans to do anything else. Maybe some writing with Tim for No Man. Maybe something along those lines. We'll see. Well, I don't know because actually, for example, when Porcupine Tree started, the very earliest Porcupine Tree, there was lots and lots and lots of improvisation. Tracks like Moon Loop were almost entirely improvised, and Radioactive Toy and all those songs, there was lots of improvisation. What happened with Porcupine Tree is as the music became more structured and it became more about the songs and less about the instrumental stuff, the band became less about improvisation, and the songs began to be more like the same every night, which has its advantages, but it also is not so interesting to play every night the song exactly the same way. So what I like about this band now is it is almost a return to the early years of Porcupine Tree, where there was lots of improvisation and it was every night could be different, and it keeps it more interesting for me, keeps it more interesting for the musicians, and I think it keeps it more interesting for the fans too, who come, particularly the ones that come to more than one show. If you come to 2 shows on this tour, you get 2 completely different shows. Yeah, because every night the solos play different solos. Yeah, I know that. I'm too much of a control freak. I wouldn't allow anything to be released that I wasn't 100%. It's not for me. It's not for me. I like to, when I release an album, a live recording, I like it to be a very good representation. So rather than release 20 shows, I'd rather take the best parts and mix a really strong live record. The thing is, the fans will find the bootlegs anyway.
Yes.
So, and I think that's part of the fun of being a fan, is finding bootlegs. The last question you asked me about the improvisation thing, and I said that in the early days of Porcupine Tree we had a lot more of that. So there's a particular song which, and I might have already mentioned it, there's a particular song which I felt would be particularly suitable for this band to play. And it comes from a time when Porcupine Tree was just my solo project. So it in a sense it is still a solo track. So there's 2 reasons why I picked it. So you have to figure out now which song it is. Not on the first tour. No, I mean the first tour is going to be all of the new record, and of course some of the previous 2 records too. But we do have this piece, The Birthday Party, which was left over, and I think we're planning to do that on the second part of the tour. It's nice to have fresh material. I mean, you know, it's something that I really, really enjoy doing. Like, for example, when Porcupine Tree did Fear of a Blank Planet, we actually played almost all of the record before we recorded it. And it's great for the fans, and it's very exciting for the band to play new material. And I love doing Luminar on the last tour with the band. So I think it's definitely something you will see me doing again. But on this next tour, it's going to be all about trying to play this music first. People have asked me, the thing is I don't know anything about guitars at all. I'm not really a good person to design a guitar, signature guitar, because I don't really understand. I mean, a guitar for me is a tool that I use to make music. But if you ask me what kind of pickups are on my guitar, I have no idea.
It's not that technical.
I'm not, and if you said to me, design your own guitar, what kind of neck do you want? What kind of pickups do you want? I don't know. And so, but if somebody came along to me and said, if a guitar manufacturer came along to me and said, we've designed this guitar very much with you in mind, we'd like to put your name to it, then I would definitely consider it. But that hasn't happened. I've been asked to design guitars, and I've kind of declined because I don't know enough about it to be able to do that. That's for people like Guthrie to do. Something more like that. I mean, I'm actually, one thing I am doing this year is I'm doing a virtual instrument, a software instrument, for a company called East West in LA, which is where we recorded the album. And the software instrument will have a lot of my signature sounds in it. So a lot of the sounds that you hear on my records will be part of this library. So you'll buy the library of sounds, and then you'll be able to create your own music using my sounds. But sounds that people know from my kind of approach, my production approach. So that's kind of exciting, and that's something that's more suitable for me. Rather than doing a guitar, doing a library of sounds and samples that people can use to create their own music. That appeals to me. So we're doing that. This library wouldn't just be for people imitating my sound. This would be something that, say, people who make music for TV and movies could use. It's got a lot of dark sounds on it, because that's what I do. It's a lot of very dark sounds. So it's more like as a tool for people maybe making music for television and cinema. That's the question, isn't it? I mean, that's the question everyone asks. Why, how does anyone get to a point, mentally get to a point where they're prepared to go and kill children in cold blood? If I had an answer to that question, maybe I could be a psychiatrist. I don't have an answer to that question. I don't think anyone does. I don't think anyone can understand. Which is why I write songs about it. I write songs about serial killers and people who are going to schools with guns because I don't understand it, and it's a way of trying not to understand it, because I don't think you can ever understand it, but to try and in a way process it, deal with it, and reflect the way the world is. Unfortunately not a very pretty place sometimes. Everyone tries to understand the world, I think, in their own way, and people who write, whether it's novels or music or make movies, that's their way of trying to deal with it. I have no plans. I mean, Blackfield, there's a new record coming. I'm not so involved as I was in the first three, but Aviv has written a great album, and I helped him to make it. We produce and mix it, and I play on it, and I sing a little bit on it too.
It's done already.
It's done.
It has to be released.
It's done. It's coming in May. It's great, and but it's more Aviv's record than mine. Which the last record was more Aviv's record than mine too. So this one is continuation of that. So Blackfield is continuing, albeit with a little bit less involvement from me. Porcupine Tree, I have no plans. I mean, the band hasn't broken up or anything, but at the same time the band is not doing anything. So it's there. It's still there. No, I haven't heard that one. I heard Richard's album with Steve H, which I thought was a fantastic record. Fantastic record. Colin, I haven't seen Colin for about a year. When was the last time I saw him? I haven't even seen Colin for about a year. But I liked Richard's album very much. It's a beautiful record.